It is.
It's too much.
It is. So what we're gonna do today, the ultimate Jewish learning is 2-for-1 special. Is we're gonna continue the sugya. We're no longer sticking to daf by daf on Sukkah. We skipped last week. We skipped one daf. We skipped 26. So just half cup, meaning we're doing daf 27, Chav Zayin of Sukkah. If you want to do your own learning to catch up, that's fine. But the 2-for-1 is that would you believe that this sugya is a foundational sugya on Shalosh Shudas and has a lot of implications for this Shabbos Erev Pesach, which is a big sugya, a big thing in the yeshiva show world of what to do on the Shabbos. It keeps Litvaks up at night, worrying what they should do, and for good reason. And we're gonna also learn the different shittas about Shalosh Shudas in general, and in particular Shalosh Shudas Erev Pesach. Okay. We're going to do also a little bit of Ishbitz. There's a beautiful Ishbitz Torahs on Pesach we're going to do, and have to tweak it for this particular year because of the way Pesach falls out. We're also going to do a little bit from Likutei Torah of the Alter Rebbe, and then we're going to do a classic machloikis between the Rosh and Tosfos is kind of in the middle, and the Gra, who argues vehemently against the Rosh, and would have you know that the Misnagdim, believe it or not, adopted the position of the Gra to the extent where the Hasidim have to be on the defensive for not following it, even though the majority of the poskim follow the Rosh. So you're going to learn all of that and more. Stay tuned. Don't go away. Okay. Shabbos G'yantif.
When did the Rush live?
The Rosh lived about 700 years ago. It was a Rishon, and his son is the Tur, and the Tur was the model of the Shulchan Aruch based itself on that model in terms of the Simanim and what the Archayim and all that, the different Siddharim of the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so number one is we're going to learn Rabbi Eliezer says that you have to eat 14 meals in the Sukkah, which is interesting because if you would count to the Shlishis, it would be 15, but he doesn't say 15. Number two is the rabbis in the Mishnah Chav Zayin argue and say you only have to have hamaitzi in the Sukkah the first night. And the Gemara says, why the first night, not the rest of it? The answer is because there's a Gzera Shava from Chamisha Asar. It says by the 15th day, the Erev Tochlu Matzos, and you should eat matzah. And it says Chamisha Asar by the Sukkah, and just like on Pesach, you're required to eat matzah. It's not optional. Also on Sukkot, you're required the first night to eat in the Sukkah. How you learn that is the machlokes between Tosfos, the Rosh, and the Vilna Gaon. That's number three. Tosfos on number two, what we just said. Oh, no, actually, I jumped the gun on that. Tosfos on number two about Yontif isn't like Shabbos. There's a Tosfos here that says that if you take our Gemara literally, you don't need to make hamaitzi on Yontif meals, except for the first night of Sukkot and the first night of Pesach. Tosfos argues on himself, right? We learned the two different Tosfos. Tosfos and Brachos argues on the Tosfos and Sukkah. But the Tosfos Sukkah here is a big chiddush that you're not required, Ikar Din, to make hamaitzi on Yontif. We don't paskin like that. But on the other hand, the Rambam is the strictest shita, and he says Yontif is exactly like Shabbos. We don't pass like that because that means you would need 3 meals every yontif day. You would need a shalosh shudas. We don't do that.
For every Shabbos, you have to have wash for every meal. Lotion at every meal.
You're in the right place. You're in the right place. We're going to answer that question. And if you're lucky, I'm going to even give you a shita that says you don't even have to wash for the daytime either. It's a das yachid. We don't really pass like that, but Rafael, for the right donation, it can be arranged.
Right now.
So shalosh shudas, there's a lot of shitas that you don't have to wash.
Who's the guy who says you don't even wash for the shop?
You want names? You want me to name names? You want a name? We'll talk later.
I want to look that up.
Yeah. Okay, number 4 is the Gemara in Brachas. It's a very, very important Gemara. Brachas Mem Testament base says that you only have to repeat Birchas Hamazon if you forgot, let's say Yalav Yavo, if the day required you to have that meal, which it says is Shabbos for Ritzei and Yontif for Yalav Yavo. However, a day like Rosh Chodesh, when you're not required to have a meal, you can't fast, but you don't have to eat a motzi, you could eat a fruit. If you forgot Yalav Yavo, you don't have to repeat. And on that, on number 5, which is when you forget Ritzei by Shalosh Shudas, that's the famous Shita of Rabbeinu Tam. I don't know if it's famous.
Yeah.
Well, it's famous for me. He wasn't famous. Every Chabadnik should know this Rabbeinu Tam. But they think they're doing it just because the Rebbe is minhag, which is true. We're going to get there. I'm going to have a sicha. I prepared also a sicha today. Look at the sichas by about Shal Shudas. Very similar to Sukkahs. But Rabbeinu Tam basically says you don't have to say Birchas Hamazon again if you forgot Ritzei by Shalosh Shudas. Friday night, Shabbos day, yes, you have to repeat because Shalosh Shudas, he doesn't believe you're required to have Hamaitzi. The other Rishonim basically are choshesh for Rabbeinu Tam. Even if they say you should have bread, they say because there's a question, Safek Brachas Lahakal. Some of the other Rishonim say that. Brought down in the Mishnah Berurah, for example. A real frum person would eat again.
What's
Whatever.
RC? Not R. Shabbos Yom Tov, not RC.
Rosh Chodesh.
Is there an Meiri that agrees with the religion?
Say it again.
Is there an Meiri that agrees with the religion?
There is a Meiri that agrees with the Rush, but it's not the same related topic. I don't know because I didn't look at the Meiri on that, so I wouldn't know. But I know there's a Meiri that I may get to. It's like an extra credit, so I'm not sure. Meiri quotes the Chachmei Lunel to answer this huge chiddush of the Rush, but you have to sit in the rain. Let me get to it. Even on the first night. The thing that's very controversial that makes the Vilna Gaon go, absolutely not. Like, even that's the Rush. He thinks the Rush is making a mistake. Meaning, Chashem said the Rush is making a mistake. He thinks that there was a Ta'as Sofer. He feels like it's a corrupt thing. He says maybe it's a corrupt thing. Usually he says it's a Ta'as. He's not really sure, but it bothers him a lot. The Meiri answer is very strong. Obviously, the Gra came much later to support the Rush with the Chachmei Lunel. Anyway, number 6 is the source for the third meal. Why do we even have to have a third meal? It's an interesting limud. From 3 times it says Hayom by the Man. It's widely seen as a dirabanan. It's like an asmachta. It's like a biblical source that's not the actual, it's not required biblically. Again, you could ask by any of these things, is there a kiyum d'oraisa? Meaning even if it's not a mikvah, particularly by yontif, we're going to ask, when we eat a yontif meal on sukkahs, in the sukkah, or you eat matzah on Pesach, not the Leil Seder, not the first night of sukkahs, even though you're not required to, because we pass like the Chacham, and even Rabbi Eliezer is closer on his original Shita. and agrees with the Chacham that you're not required to have a motzi every meal. So are you actually, could you still be Mekayim a mitzvah? For example, if a woman isn't mechuyev in Sukkah, but she chooses to go in the Sukkah, is pshat she's just there, but she could have been at home, it's equal? No. She's Mekayim the mitzvah of Sukkah, even though she's not obligated in it. And the same thing would be for each one of us, because if you think about it, we don't have to eat any meal in the Sukkah except the first night. We could not eat bread. We could not eat mezainis, so we'll eat out of the Sukkah. Gaval. So every time we choose, we're not doing a mitzvah, chas v'shalom. We're doing a mitzvah. We're mekayim a mitzvah of yeshiva b'sukkah. We're just not required to have bread. If I didn't want to have bread, I wouldn't have that kiyum because I wouldn't be eating bread. So I could have been eating outside the sukkah. Don't worry, the Chassidus is about to come to get the Gemara out of the way, but you have to go through it. That's the whole point of the shir. We're not starting with Chassidus. See, I lost Tzvi because he doesn't. Where's Tzvi? Where are you? There you are. Did I lose you yet?
No, I'm still here.
Okay. You're still there. I love you, Tzvi. Tzvi comes to the Chassidus. He'll sit through 40 minutes of this to get 20 minutes, 10 minutes of Chassidus. That's what happened. That's the Lakewood in him. He spent all these years in Lakewood. By the way, I spoke to guys who learned so much Gemara they can't look at it anymore. It's too much for them. It's like they burnt out a Gemara. So Chas v'Shalom, you didn't burn out a Gemara, but you're giving Chassidus a try. Shkaya. Okay, number 3 is a sukkah in the rain. We mentioned that already. That there's Tosfos says number 7. Tosfos says one thing. The Rush says. The Rush says you should sit in the rain. Sit in the rain the first night. And the like I already mentioned, the Vilna Gaon says absolutely not. You wait for the rain to stop, but you don't sit in the rain. And there's a gewaldige chiddush that the Briskers quote, b'shem the Vilna Gaon. It might have had early sources even, that it's when you sit in a sukkah in the rain, you're not mekayim any. Not only you're not required to, you're getting nothing at all. You're not mekayim anything. It's like you're sitting in the house. Again, this became so widespread in the yeshivish world, so they look at Chabad as complete meshugayim, because they don't sleep in the sukkah, which is you're required to, according to the Gemara, even a shinas ara, even a little nap, but they'll eat and even drink water in the sukkah in the pouring rain. So the Yeshiva Shavel thinks they're Meshugayim. And they're right, according to the Vilna Gaon. The only problem is, the Vilna Gaon is chaylik on the Rush. Almost, a lot of people don't know, the Rush is also a great Jew. It's not so simple, Also wonderful placing. Most people follow the Rush when the right place can follow him. And they happen to follow him here. So you have to say, according to the Rush, that even the rest of Sukkot, you're mekayim a mitzvah, even if you're not obligated, because Toshvu came to Duru, it's like a home, so you wouldn't necessarily sit in your home if there was a leak, but it's still a home, so you have a leaky home, a leaky sukkah. That's number, 7, 8. Is the lingering machlokes of the Gra. I just talked about that. And the Balatanya today. And also how that machlokes is not just by the raining in the sukkah and the sleeping in the sukkah. Chabad doesn't sleep in the sukkah. It's one of the few controversial things in Chabad that that Chabad could just say there's so many other Russian Hasidim that don't sleep in the sukkah. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you sleep in the sukkah in Russia? It's crazy. Almost no one sleeps in the sukkah in Russia. So, no, that's not the reason. So they have another reason, a spiritual reason. And the same thing for Shalosh Shudas. Chabad they don't wash with Shalosh Shudas. They don't have to have fire for why not. We're going to learn, there's 4 shitas of what you could eat. for Shalosh Shudas. Including one that says you could eat a fruit, eat an apple, you're Yotze Shalosh Shudas. The strictest one is, the oilam is nayik to the strictest one, which is to wash, I might see. And by the way, all of those four shitas, the Vilna Gaon says, where's the makar of that? Our Gemara. He quotes our Gemara. Chaf, Zayin, Amud Aleph, in Sukkah. Bir Hagra on the Shulchan Aruch quotes our Gemara. So the way Tosfos explains our Gemara, it's not beferish in the Gemara, but it's in our Gemara. Okay. That's number 8. Number 9 is now we're getting to Likutei Torah and Ishvitz. We waited long. The relationship between matzah and chametz. We know, for example, women, they're not usually obligated in mitzvahs aseh shazman grama, but they're mechuyev in the mitzvah of matzah and the seder in general. So the question is, why are they mechuyev in matzah? It's mitzvah aseh shazman grama. Anybody know? What? That's a good answer, but that's not the answer the Gemara gives. It's a good answer. We say that by Purim and Hanukkah, but why do we say it by Pesach? Anybody?
No, I know. I
No.
know this.
What?
I can answer.
Of course you can answer.
Because I'm sorry.
Why? Just because you have smicha, you're not allowed to answer?
You're not allowed to answer.
That's why you should answer. Only Rabbi Rechman, I didn't let him answer the questions this week. I said,
It's not a trick question.
it's just straight up Gemara, but you have to. We're not learning Pesachim right now, so.
Shabbos, because whatever there's a Asay and Lotas.
So what's the losa say? Explain.
You don't say women are going to keep Shabbos because.
So what's the losa say?
The Lotas says not that comments.
Okay. Whoever has the obligation to not eat chametz, we learn out they're the ones who are obligated to eat matzah. In fact, there's a special limud that I would equate women on Sukkot to women on matzah, that they're also obligated. There's a special limud that they're not required of the Erev Tochlu Matzos to make a Gzer Shava, to be required to eat in the Sukkah. They are required to eat matzah, Erev Tochlu Matzos, but not to eat in the Sukkah. There's a special Gemara that has a pasuk, or some part of a word in a pasuk, a part of a pasuk to teach us that. Okay, so why? Now I want to go a little deeper into that. I'm bringing out this thing, not just about men and women, that you want to know how you can eat matzah. You can only eat matzah if you get rid of chametz. Meaning what? That sometimes the experience, matzah is what? It's michla de hamnusa. It's the bread that gives us emunah in Hashem. What's sukkah? Tzila de hamnusa. This is the Zohar says it. It's the protection, covering, shade. What do you call living space? When you live somewhere, what's the word for that? A dwelling that imbues faith. How do you have faith? You have to diminish your ego. What is faith? Everyone says faith is, I have faith, I believe. Like shake your hands up and, like take some drugs. Is that what emunah is? Having drugs? So you lose your sense of your own self? Related, but not the same. What it is you have to you have to stop being full of yourself. Meaning, when you are all about you, you're lacking in emunah. Because it's all you. So there's no room for a God. There's no room for emunah. So who's the you? That's chametz. Who's the eibishter? That's the matzah. That's ad shenigla alei melech malach amlach makadosh baruch hu. But he makes us, he gives us the ayin. He gives us the no thingness, but we can't do it if we don't get rid of our own chametz. So that's so on Erev Pesach, that's number 9. Number 10 is the avoda of bir chametz and achilas matzah is like this. The Ishbitzer says that if you look in Pesachim, the first thing the Gemara does is teach you about language. And then in Arvei Pesachim, Samach LaMincha, the 10th chapter, I believe, which is Nagea more than ever for this year. Not just because it's always got the most important part of the Haggadah and things like that, but it also has the things about Erev Pesach when you stop eating a meal, so to speak. Matzah Ashira is a whole conversation that we're going to just skirt around because I'm going to say the bottom line is we're not doing Shalosh Shudas this year in any way that needs to resemble Mezainis. I have a lot of friends, a lot of people I know that have they have a matzah ball, they have a matzah with wine, they have to figure out a way to have Mezainis for Shalosh Shudas, so to speak. I'm not doing it. I'm going to have an apple. Oh, no, that's going to be the charosis. I'm going to be having orange. Okay, no, Rabbi Schechter says that should be in the charosis. Okay, I'm going to have a pear. We settle on a pear or a banana. Okay.
You can't have the charos.
I don't know who got that inside joke with the orange. You get the orange? Yeah. What were you saying, Rabbi?
You can't have charos at Erev Pesach.
Some people said you can't. I don't think you have to be choshesh for that. The main thing is not to have matzah and maror, maybe. Okay. Well, because Rabbi Schechter is the one who says really an orange. No. He has a whole... Because he says tapuchim are oranges. Yeah.
Are citrus, not necessarily orange.
Okay, what's citrus? Not a lemon. It's going to be an orange.
That would taste good.
What?
It tastes, but then you put a grapefruit.
A grapefruit. You put a grapefruit.
Build a feminist.
Okay, the avoda of bir chametz. Okay, let's. So the Ishbitzer is going to talk about if you wanna experience something, you have to limit yourself in that area. You know, for example, there's a crazy thing. I read it, and I thought it was crazy, but then I thought about it. It's not so crazy. I only heard this about monks, but I saw, and Reb Nachman says that sometimes he would get an itch, and he wouldn't scratch it. Doesn't matter how it would drive him crazy, he wouldn't scratch. I'm like, just scratch the itch. What's the big deal? What's the mishagas? And I realized what it was. The itch represents you want to do something. It's not because it needs to be done, so you want to do it. So he wanted to stop himself. He wanted to control himself. He wanted to control himself till the itch just goes away. I wouldn't do it. I'm going to scratch it. It's just going to scratch it.
Once you itch, scratch
There's no end.
You have to scratch it again.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's a little bit about what the Ishbitzer says is if you're not limiting your eating, if you're just giving in every time you're hungry, you eat, then you're not developing your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because you're not understanding where the food is coming from. You're not making separation between your desire and your action. You want, you take. There has to be something for Kedusha to be chal, for something holy in your life to take effect. You have to have self-restraint. And that's what Pesach, he says, is the epitome of that in Achila. Okay. And this year it affects the Shabbos, particularly the Shalosh Shudas, even though usually we don't have any Indian of fasting on Shabbos. Okay, let's take a look at the Gemara. Okay, the Mishnah, Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, towards the top. Rabbi Eliezer, Eimer Arba Es Sudas Chayiv Adam Lachol B'Sukkah, Achas Be'em Ba'achas B'Layla. 14 sudas, one during the day and one at night. So 7 times 2 is 14. Where's Shalosh Shudas? Just food for thought. Maybe you don't have to eat Shalosh Shudas on Shabbos. Let's call on Sukkos. Why not? So it should be 15. By the way, some people, I think Shlomo Kluger answers that the 14 is because it's starting from the day and night. The 15th is the first night, which is its own category. It's a doichik answer, but it's an interesting answer. Different achronim answer different answers. The chachamim omrim ein l'davar kitzvah. There's no set amount of how many meals you need to have. Chutz milele rishon shel chag b'vad, except for the first night of Yontif. Now again, what do you mean? What about all the other Yontif meals? Aren't you mechuyev to eat Yontif meals? That's the Gemara Mentassim and Beis and Brachos implies. So you'd have to say that you're mechuyev mitzad simchas Yontif, but not mitzad not mitzad the Sukkah, and that's what the Gemara will say. The way the Taisus learns. In other words, is it the Sukkah? Is there a special chiyuv that you have to eat in a Sukkah on Yontif, or is it just a regular simchas Yontif? Like the same as Shavuos, the same as Pesach, it just happens to be on Sukkos. So, yeah, if there's no problem with eating in the Sukkah, go ahead and eat in the Sukkah. But if there's any reason not to eat in the Sukkah, or for example, it's raining, so you have no reason to eat in the Sukkah. So you eat in the house, and then it stops raining, the sun comes out, beautiful day. If it's because of the mitzvah of Sukkah, so you had Simchas Yontif, but you didn't have Simchas Yontif in a Sukkah. So go outside again. Like you would at night, the first night. But the Chum say, no, it's not like that. There's no reason. Once you're not in the Sukkah, for whatever the reason, you're traveling, it's raining, it's cold, whatever it is, you ate outside the Sukkah, you're Yaitse, your Yontif meal. You don't have to go back. The sun comes out, it's warm. You came home, you have a place, a sukkah in the back. No, unnecessary. Okay, I'm going to skip the Oidam or Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar also says there's a tashlumin. If you missed one of the meals, you can make an extra meal. Good question. How do you make an extra meal when you're required to make each meal? The Gemara will discuss it, including on the night after Sukkot, the first night of Shmini Atzeres. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is also, we did number one and number two. To continue number two, look at the Gemara. My time Teshu came to Duru. The way it says you should dwell in the sukkah, the way you would live at home. It must be that there's a night dwelling and a day dwelling. There's a mechuyev of a day and a night eating in the sukkah. I'm not going to get into that. That's not the sheet I want to expand on. Rabbanan kedira. Madira ibayachli like your house. You don't have to eat at home. You can, you don't have to. You can eat there, you don't have to. If that's the case, why do you have to eat something? Amaitzi, supposedly, the first night. These two lines are very important because they're going to come up again and again. Because it's a Gzeir Shabbat. It says the 15th here, and it says the 15th by Pesach, and we equate the two. We learn out one from the other, from there to here. That Malahal and Laila Harishon Chayva, the first night of Pesach, you're required to eat the matzah. But afterwards, you're not required. That's the whole thing in Psachim. Same thing here. You're required to eat in the sukkah the first night. We're going to say required to eat amaitzi. There it says in the evening you should eat matzahs. By the way, it's much more than in the evening you should eat matzahs. It says shivas yomim, or is it 7 days or 6 days? 7 days you should eat matzah, and so what really you should be mechuyev to have it the whole time. But it also says there's a that's 6 days. So just whatever. It's a whole Gemara. I'm not going to get into it. So that's number one. Number two. Number three is Tosfos. Let's look at Tosfos about. You know what? Let's see. I have to keep my eye on the time because I want to spend more time on 7, 8, 9, and 10. Should I do them first? 7, 8, 9, and 10 first?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do the more important. I mean, they're all equally important. I just
I said you go first.
I'm going to go to 4. The Gemara Brachas Memtes says that if you forget Yalav Yavai on Yontif, you have to repeat it, and on Rosh Chodesh you don't have to. Comes Tosfos, because number 3 and number 4 are really connected here. Comes Tosfos in Divrei Hamaschil, Ibai Echel Ibai Le'echel. And says on the 5th line, according to our Gemara, if you forgot to make Yalav Yava, you don't have to repeat it because you don't have to eat in the Sukkah because you don't have to eat if you don't want to. But the Gemara in Brachas, which is what Mem Tesem that says, Shabbos is v'yantiv l'loy sakilei d'loyachal. It's not okay to not eat on Shabbos and Yantiv, and if therefore imta you didn't make Yalav Yava, let's say on Yantiv, chozer you have to repeat it. Lo mesuk ma'ela b'leil Yantiv harishon shal Pesach v'leil Yantiv harishon shal Chag. We'd be forced to reevaluate that. It says it's not talking about Yantiv in general. It's specific to Yantiv, first night of Sukkot, first night of Pesach. Big chiddush, like I said. There's a equivalent Tosfos to this in Brachas. Who argues on this Tosfos? How can a Tosfos argue on it himself? Does anyone know?
Because he didn't have to be himself.
Ah, beautiful. Because it's not one person. Tosfos is many dozens of Balei Tosfos, maybe even more. There's like 4 or 5 famous ones that everyone knows, but there's a lot of them. So if you have an argument, Tosfos arguing on himself, it's just different Balei Tosfos arguing. It's okay. It's not Rashi. When Rashi argues on himself, which he does on occasion, you have a question. Why? But here it's not even a question. Okay. So, what is the Gemara? How does Tosfos argue on himself in Brachas? What does he say there? He says, no. It's like a brisker Torah. You're mechuyev to have a yontif meal. Mitzad simchas yantif, but it has nothing to do with eating it in the sukkah. Eat it wherever you want. Oh, yeah, but you should be eating in the sukkah. Okay, if everything is perfect, of course you should eat in the sukkah. But if anything wrong, in other words, and lahalacha, the Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah Berurah, the way they'll quote this Gemara is like the Tosfos in Brachas, not our Tosfos. Why? Because if you quote our Tosfos, it comes out that you don't have to wash hamaitzi for any yontif suda except for the first night of Pesach and the first night of Sukkot. However, you'll see a little nekuda of that still. If you look in the Shulchan Aruch, I gave you a copy of it in the back.
According to the Brisker way, what would be the third machlokes, whether it's like the sukkah or not?
Yeah.
Like if it's strictly machlokes and lumpus, like what would come out? What would be that?
No, there would be an afkamina, for example, if it was raining, let's say, should you go into the sukkah, or
Have a meal.
But let's look here. No, it's not here. It's the Hilchos. Sorry, it's if you go to my. Oh, Peter's, I was gonna send, no, yeah, the problem is it's not here. It's the next page, and for some reason I didn't make a copy of it. If you want to, Binyamin, if you go into my office, you'll see a Mishnah Berurah, an English Mishnah Berurah on my desk. If you could bring it out. I'll read from Halacha 3, page 175. It's the last page. Eating of the Sukkah on the night of the first day of Yontif is obligatory, even if one merely eats an olive bulk of bread in the Sukkah, he will have fulfilled his obligation. From then on, eating in the Sukkah is optional. If one wishes to eat a meal, he must eat the meal in the Sukkah. On the other hand, if he wishes, he may. That's why the suspense is killing me. But from what you're looking at right now, it seems to be an echo of our Tosfos here. You hear? That you don't have to. What about Yontif meals? Okay, so hold the thoughts, because I'll read the rest of the Shulchan Aruch to you when Binyamin comes back. Okay, so we did 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 5 is, what about you if you forgot we'd say by Shalosh Shudas? So Rabbeinu Tam says, yeah, that's it. Bring it here. Rabbeinu Tam says you don't have to repeat not Shemon Esrei. You don't have to repeat benching, because you're not. Ikar didn't require it to have. No, it's the Hebrew. This is the wrong one. It's an English one. It's black.
And it's
Keep looking. Keep looking. It might be open even. It's on my desk. Yeah. If it's not on my desk, maybe it's in the main office. Maybe I made a copy with it. Okay, so comes the that's our Rabbeinu Tam, which leads us to number 6, which is, what is the source of the third meal? So I said it says Hayom 3 times. So Levush has a very interesting answer of why there are 4 shitas of what you can eat. One is that it has to be bread. Another one has to be at least mezainis, but not bread. The third is it could be meat or fish. And the fourth, the most makel, is even a fruit. So why are 3 out of 4 shitas so lenient? So he says, because if you look at the 3 times it says Hayom, by the man that we learned it out, the Gemara in Shabbos learns it out, the Shalosh Shudas from, is the last time it says Hayom. Today you won't find the man in the field going on the Shabbos day, which means that the third meal, there's some recognition of there won't be something. So it's like a step down from the first 2. Another thing that we find, I'm going to talk, this is a sikha, look at the sikhas, is that in Shulchan Aruch it's very careful to say a few times, don't overeat the second meal so that you can't eat the third meal. Don't eat the second meal too late so that you're not hungry for the third meal. And if you are not hungry, you don't have to eat bread, because it's supposed to be oneg, it's supposed to be a delight, a joy. If it's torture, you don't do it. In fact, we learned, Shneur and I were learning, that in the Kalbach Shul, in theory, in a winter Shabbos, when you're middle of the kid, when do you do Shalosh Shudas? So you should really do it after Chatzos, really preferably half an hour after Chatzos. It was what we call Mincha Gedolah. So that would be either 12:30 or 1:30, approximately, depending on standard time or daylight savings time. Let's say you're having a nice meal. We have a nice Suda for the kids. We wash. We have 2 cholents. There's a little recession going on. We're going to only cut back to 1 cholent, but we have a big Suda. So let's say you started at 12:20, let's say, and a half hour after midday is 1:20. You should bench at 1:15, and the rabbi should give a little 10-minute Dvar Torah. You should wash again, and that'll be Shalosh Shudas, because if you're going to keep eating from 12:30, let's say, till 1:45 straight, and it's a winter Shabbos, you're going to be stuffed by 5 o'clock. Yeah. If it, well, I'm sorry, I must have moved it around. My apologies. Yeah, it was like So comes the Rebbe in the Kutasichos and explains like this: the reason why Hasidim are mekel is we already have those 4 shitas, so we're already allowed to be mekel, but it's more than that, because even though there are 4 shitas, the rove of the poskim say, including the Alter Rebbe, you should be machmer, including the Shulchan Aruch, including Mishnah Berurah. Everyone says most people bring down to a more lenient shita and say, but be machmer, because there's good reason to be machmer. I think if the hachra of the poskim, meaning the majority of the major early poskim, are not with Rabbeinu Tam, but even those who are not with him, like is it his brother or his cousin? The Ri.
It's his brother.
Brother says, I'm mesupek if I should go with my brother or not. And I'm not sure whether he quotes him, and then he quotes reasons not to follow him. So there were like major figures who were contending with Rabbeinu Tam. Some argued, some were mesupek with what to do with him. The fact remains that a good Jew should be machmer. So why is Chabad and other Hasidim and other people not machmer? So the Rebbe explains, the reason is because you're not mechuyev to eat if you're mitzvah, because you're full. The problem is, what if you're not? Is the Rebbe claiming that we're always full? No. He said, because by the time Shalosh Shudas comes, it's Ke'en Olam Haba. In general, Shabbos is Ke'en Olam Haba, but Shalosh Shudas in general is the one that corresponds to the most ruchniistic part of Shabbos. So at that point, you're just not interested in washing. You have to eat something because you're still connected to Olam Hazeh. But, so what's the problem with, and he says, well, what about the Hasidim? The Hasidim aren't such high level. He says, no, but they would like to be. And they're mekusher to the Rebbe. And where does he have the same mahalach? By not sleeping in a sukkah, which is one of the most controversial things, to use a ruchniistic answer. And the Rebbe says, it's not a ruchniistic answer. You're not supposed to use Kabbalah keneged halacha. When there's a machlek, meaning if the halacha and Kabbalah can be reconciled, you reconcile them. If they can't be, you have to follow halacha. And the Rebbe insists that it's not a kula, but it's a chumrah. That's what he's insisting. Anyway, that because of that,
But the Chudah said that whenever anyone argues with the Arizal, you have to listen to the Arizal. Precisely because it was rooted in the Torah.
So the Magen Avraham, we'll go straight into this because this is a Negeh Inyana D'Yayma. This is connected to
The opposite.
the Shal Shudas on Erev Pesach. The Magen Avraham quotes the Zohar. It says the Rashbi, when he would have Shalosh Shudas on Erev Pesach, he wouldn't eat a bite. He would say over Torah. So that's the Magen Avraham quoting the Shalah, quoting the Zohar. In other words, that the epitome of Shalosh Shudas not eating at all, and by the way, some people take that Zohar even into the rest of the year, not just for that Shabbos, that you should, that the Torah is on the level of Achila. Again, Chabad says maybe you don't have to go that far, you can eat something. So the bottom line is, because of this Torah, when this Shabbos comes, I'm like, good, so I'll eat an apple, I'll say Dvar Torah, I'll learn a little bit, I'm not worried. But some people are very worried. Even the Alter Rebbe brings down that all the major prices can bring down, starting from Tosfos and onward. This Shabbos is an exception. Don't worry about Shalosh Shudas. You don't have to eat bread. You don't have to eat matzah shira. But the Alter Rebbe brings down, our custom is not to eat matzah shira, so we don't have to have Shalosh Shudas. Implying that if you had the custom to eat matzah shira, like egg matzah, that you could eat it for Shalosh Shudas. Again, and that's why you have all of these people who are kaching and what they can eat for Shalosh Shudas, because you can't eat real matzah, because you're not allowed to eat matzah or Pesach. You can't obviously eat chametz, because you can't eat chametz after 2 hours before midday. So they come up with all of these very interesting chidushim of what to do, what type of matzah is you are allowed to eat, and so on. Not a problem for us. Let's go into the Chassidus. Before I go into the Chassidus, one final thought. The Carbon Nisanel actually has a very strong, beautiful language. The Rosh is the one who says that you have to eat in the Sukkah the first night, even if it's raining, right? And the Carbon Nisanel is a commentary on the Rosh says, "Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halaylos." He says it's very funny, right? Why is this night different from all other nights? He actually uses that in this thing. It's manashana, right? It's a joke, but it's cute. And because if it's raining, you're mitzvah, you're uncomfortable, and if you're uncomfortable on that level, you're in pain. You're not. According to the Vilna Gaon, you're not in the sukkah at all. But even if you say you're in a sukkah, but you're not mekayim a mitzvah, what mitzvah are you doing being in the rain? He says, you know what it is? The Manashana Halayla Zemikal Lelos is it's the same as Pesach. We learned it out Tesvav. So we're gonna, and the Rashi says he quotes different things in the Rush the Rush here in our Gemara, which is not the Iker Rush about eating in the sukkah on the first night, but he quotes the Rush that says these things, quoting the Yerushalmi. Because part of the interesting thing is the Rush uses some parts of the Yerushalmi for his argument to say it's mamish like Pesach. And it's quoted in Shulchan Aruch that either the Ramah or the Shulchan Aruch says that you should do all of the things you would have to do Erev Pesach on Erev Sukkot, which means Erev Pesach, you have to stop eating by the 10th hour of the day. You can't really have real, like a meal then, because you want to have matzah l'teav, and you have to have an appetite. Same thing, you should not eat late in the day on Erev Sukkot. By the way, Erev Shabbos is better not to, but technically speaking, you can. That's why you could have been Paris Mapa Mekadesh on the Purim Meshullash, on Erev Pesach. You could have gone right onto Shabbos. By the way, a lot of people don't know that. You're allowed to technically eat, stuff your face, before Shabbos. It's a minhag toiv not to. We're machmer, but it's not the Ikar Adin. It's a machlokes in the Gemara, but we paskin lahakel. And if there's a Sudas mitzvah, you're absolutely allowed to. If there's no difference, so you'll make the Suda, the bris, let's say, in the morning, but you can make it in the afternoon and be full. Okay. Comes the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah, number 8, 9, and 10, and says the following. But the bottom line is, if you're coming to the shir, what are you going to have for Shal Shudas? A pear. If you go to the Rosh Carlos shir, I'm sure they'll come up with some very interesting things that you can eat, and somehow it's you're not up, you're doing what you need to do and not violating anything. But we're going to stick with a pear. What are you going to do if you come to the shir on Sukkot? The first night of Sukkot and it's raining. You're going to sit in the sukkah in the rain. But if you want to be choshesh for the Vilna Gaon, you should also wait for it to stop raining and eat again. There's big Rosh Yeshivas that they're staring out the window. They open the window the whole night, hoping it's going to stop raining. But again, the Rosh would say, if we accept the Rosh is really equating and it's brought down Lamaisa, I think in the Ramah, that you should also eat your Suda, at least your bread, the Suda, by Chatzos, the first night of Sukkot, just like the same way you want to finish the matzah by Chatzos, by the Seder. Yeah, it's brought down. And it's all based, used on the Rush. Now, let's talk about chametz u'matzah. So I have a picture of it because I learned it this morning. A beautiful mimer in Likutei Torah. Let your nephew listen to the shir. Let's see. Took some pictures this morning. That's the only problem with these maimarim. They're not short. I'm trying to find the nakuda here, and I didn't underline it. Okay. Okay, so the nakuda is that the question is, why do we eat in general, and why do we eat matzah in particular on Pesach? And the answer to why we eat in general is ki lo ala lechem levada yichya ha'adam ki al kol motzi pi Hashem. That we're not eating just the actual bread. We're eating the motzi pi Hashem. We're eating the word of Hashem that's in the bread. What's the word of Hashem that's in the bread? If you want to get technical, it's the kochot from Olam HaTohu, from the world of Tohu, that when the kalim of the world of Tohu broke, with their little bits of the tzitzot of light attached to them, they fell into Olam Hazeh HaGashmi. They fell into the physical world, and we are tikkun because we have seichel, we have the gimel kavim, we have an order of the way we can take out of chaos, pull some aspect of it. And what does the Rabbi Kudin always say? Oros to tohu b'kelim to tikkun. We want to take the powerful light that's in the world of tohu, but can't be contained in the vessel there because it doesn't get along. But we want to put it into the realm of tikkun. So that's why we eat, because the food represents the most physical, the world of tohu. And the soul, and that's why when it comes to bread, we say, Ein hatinok yodeh likrot abba ad shetam tam dagan, or chitin. That a little baby, 1, 2, 3, they only start to know their father is their father when they begin to eat wheat, when they begin to have a cookie or a bagel. What does that mean? So the Alter Rebbe explains, they still don't understand biology. They're still not a science student in 7th grade that went to the reproductive classes of sexual education, but they understand intuitively that their father is their father. It's l'mayla min ha-seichel, which is exactly what food is. The olam hatohu is l'mayla min ha-seichel. It could fall lower or higher. So what we want to do is in the tam dagan, in the taste of the bread, we want to be l'mayla min ha-seichel, to know that we know that our Father in heaven is our Father in heaven. The only problem is when you're getting started. See, here's the problem: when you start your relationship with Hashem, if you're so full of yourself, Hashem will just be another thing to add to your ego. Like a spiritual person who's like they're arrogant. Their spirituality is just another form of arrogance. Like study Kabbalah, or I'm a great Torah scholar, right? So that's why we start with the matzah. You hear? In other words, we want the olam hatohu. We want to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is our God, but it has to have emunah. Emunah means you need to be mevatel yourself. Emunah isn't just I believe in something else, but ultimately that something else is subjugated to me because it's really about He's God, but he's only God because he makes me greater. That's not emunah. That's just making me greater. It's me again. So it has to start with the matzah. The matzah is the bittul. But how do you have matzah? You have to get rid of the chametz. So you're using the humility of the light of the neshama to look for chametz. B'chorma v'stakim. You're looking inside yourself to see the issues that you have, to clear out your own chametz, and only then can you do matzah. That's Alter Rebbe. There's a little bit of the Alter Rebbe. There's so much more. That's number 9. Number 10 is the same thing. The same thing that take everything we just said in number 8 and number 9. Number 10 is that every year when Shabbos falls out, when Yom Tov falls out on a regular night, so I have to eat a little less Erev Yom Tov because I want to have desire for the mitzvah of the matzah. I want it to taste amazing. Comes Shabbos, the question is, how am I able to balance the fact that it's Shabbos right now? I have to eat on Shabbos. I even have to have shalosh sudas on Shabbos, with the fact that I have to have a cheshek for matzah at night. Well, the answer is that once a year, it's okay to be a little closer to the Rashbi on Shabbos, a little closer to the Olam Haba, so to speak, by the third mealtime. Like that will be, the fact that Pesach is coming, that will already give you the Geula during the time of Shalosh Shudas, that you'll have a pair and you'll be Yotzei. Why is that? Because it is. Because it is. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that even on Shabbos, he made Shalosh Shudas this unique way that it's fungible. The achila, it's not the same as the other two sudas. Even in the stricter shittas, they all acknowledge that there's nothing we can do. We can play this way and play it that way. But Shabbos shechal dios Erev Pesach, you can't just, what are you going to do? You can't eat matzah, you can't eat chametz. You could figure something out, but be'etzem, it's Erev Pesach right now. You have to get ready for achilas matzah. That's the main avodah, even on Shabbos. You have to get ready. Shabbos doesn't push away matzah, doesn't push away anything. You bring a carbon Pesach on Shabbos.
How about you have a tish? You wash a second time in the morning, and then you have your tish, and it lasts all through the afternoon.
So that's a very good answer. What you could do that, you could even if you can there's one opinion that says you could make a third meal after the second meal before chatzos. That's not the majority opinion is you can't. But what you can for sure do is continue the meal till after chatzos, and then that'll count the shal shudas. You could technically, that could be one of the ways to do it.
Like the first mouth.
Meaning you have a motzi at 10:15, and you keep going till after chatzos, till half hour after chatzos. The reality is it's not practical because you can't really eat them for 2 hours. It's 3 hours, 2.5 hours.
Mr. Hasidic Rebbe.
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard to do. I haven't